Something is stirring. It's close now. So close you can almost feel it pressing against the edges of your reality. You're standing on the edge of something irreversible, something powerful, and you're about to witness the moment that could either break you or make you untouchable. This isn't a typical transformation. This is a soul quake. And if no one has warned you yet, consider this your only warning. Most people don't fail their spiritual awakening because they weren't strong enough. They fail because no one told them the truth about what awakening really asks of you. It doesn't simply arrive like a whisper of peace or some blissful light show. It ambushes you. It tears through your illusions, dismantles everything you thought was true about yourself, and demands that you face every part of you you've ever buried. Tomorrow, July 2nd, marks a turning point, a threshold you may not realize you've been approaching until you're in it. On this day, the moon enters its first quarter, and with it rises a hidden pressure that has been building behind the scenes. It's not chaos for the sake of confusion, it's precision. This energy doesn't just stir things up randomly, it pulls up the things you've worked the hardest to bury. Emotions you don't understand, guilt with no clear source, a strange disconnection from the world. If you've felt more distant from people lately, if your relationships suddenly feel paper thin or like they're slipping through your fingers for no obvious reason, it's not just you. It's the beginning of a major energetic shift, and it has purpose. You are not alone in this, even if it feels that way. There's a strange phenomenon that happens once your awakening really begins. People disappear. The world you once knew suddenly feels quieter. Your messages go unanswered. Your social life seems to dissolve into silence. You may wonder if you made a mistake, if you somehow took a wrong turn on this path. But this stillness you're feeling, it's not punishment, it's not failure, it's a sacred cocoon. Your nervous system, your energetic infrastructure, is trying to rewire itself, and that cannot happen in the chaos of your old world. So life, in its mysterious wisdom, pulls you out of those patterns, out of the noise, out of the distractions and the validation loops. It places you in the space between who you were and who you're becoming. And it's in that space, between breaths, between identities, that the real work happens. Most people don't stay long enough to see what's on the other side of the silence. They misinterpret the void as proof they're doing it wrong. They go back to the noise. They reach for comfort, for the numbness they used to survive. And that's when the awakening stops. That's when the old patterns win. But if you're still here, still listening, there's a reason. Something ancient is beginning to stir beneath the isolation. Something that's waited lifetimes for your attention. One of the most unexpected and deeply unsettling parts of awakening is the arrival of a mysterious guilt. It creeps in like fog, thick, disorienting, and hard to explain. There's no clear trigger, no event to point to, just this heavy sensation in your chest, like you've done something terribly wrong, but you can't remember what. And the reason it feels so confusing is because it's not coming from your conscious mind. It's emerging from your soul. July 2nd is not just another date on the calendar, it's an energetic doorway. The moon's phase brings light to what was hidden, but this time it's not just memories from this lifetime that are rising. What's being pulled to the surface are soul fragments, echoes of who you've been in other timelines. Parallel versions of you who made different choices, versions that hurt others, versions that never healed, versions that are still carrying regret, fear, or pain. Your soul remembers them. And now, their unresolved energies are knocking. This isn't punishment, it's an invitation. You are being asked not just to face your own shadows, but to witness the shadows of every version of you that's ever existed. The guilt, the grief, the sorrow. It's not here to crush you. It's here to be transmuted. But only if you choose to sit with it, to breathe through it, to offer forgiveness, not just to who you are now, but to all the versions of yourself who never got the chance to forgive themselves. This is how karma dissolves. Not through suffering, but through presence, through grace. And just when you think you've gotten a handle on the emotional weight of all this, your body begins to shift too. You may start waking up one morning and realize that your favorite food suddenly makes you nauseous. The perfume you've worn for years now feels completely wrong. The clothes in your closet? They might feel like costumes belonging to someone else entirely. Even the way you sleep, move, speak, it begins to feel foreign. That's not your imagination. It's not hypersensitivity. It's a sign that your body, your vessel, is no longer compatible with who you used to be. The frequency you're moving into requires a new operating system. Your biology is recalibrating to receive higher energies, and it's shedding anything that can't support that process. This is not symbolic. It's literal. Awakening is not just emotional and spiritual, it is physical. Your nervous system, your digestion, your sleep, your senses, they are all adapting to your expanded awareness. Before we move ahead in the video, I want to let you know that if you've gained even a little value from my efforts, please consider donating through Super Thanks or via PayPal. It really helps motivate and inspire us to keep going. The moon on July 2nd doesn't just light up the sky. It activates something deep within your cellular memory. You may feel more sensitive. You may cry more easily. You may crave more water. Your intuition might spike. Certain sounds might overwhelm you. That's because your body is no longer tolerating interference. It's becoming more precise, more attuned to energy. And that means everything from your relationships to your environment must now match the truth of your frequency, or it will begin to fall away. This process can be brutal at times. It can be isolating. It can break down every false identity you've ever held. But it's not here to destroy you. It's here to unearth the real you. If you are in the void right now, navigating the silence, the guilt, the loneliness, please know this: you are not lost. You are being reborn. And on the other side of this transformation is a version of you who is clear, grounded, powerful beyond anything you've been led to believe. You are not breaking down. You are breaking open. There is a sacred intelligence guiding this entire process. Trust it. Trust yourself. And don't run from what you're feeling. It doesn't always begin with dramatic change. In fact, it often starts quietly, subtly, with a shift you can't quite explain. Suddenly, environments you used to tolerate without thinking begin to feel stifling. Not in a physical sense, but on an energetic level. Places that once felt like home now feel heavy. People you once loved being around, those who used to light you up, now leave you inexplicably drained. The connection doesn't spark in the same way, and it's not because you've become cold. It's because you're shifting. Deeply, internally. This is the moment when most people panic. They feel the dissonance and try to override it. They push back against the discomfort, trying to cling to their old routines, to eat the same things, move the same way, speak the same language of their former self. But in doing so, they slow down their own transformation. That resistance doesn't preserve their old life. It delays their next evolution. But for those who are willing to listen, who allow their bodies, minds, and spirits to speak in their strange new dialect. Something remarkable begins to happen. The acceleration begins. The awakening quickens. Their consciousness opens wider and faster than they ever believed possible. They begin to attune to a new energetic frequency, a blueprint that their soul has been preparing for lifetimes to embody. And just when you begin to adjust to this new internal rhythm, when your body is finally syncing with the next version of your being, something else arises, something unexpected, harder to name. It's not physical, not even emotional in the traditional sense. It's subtler, but more piercing. A voice, a familiar one. Not a voice from someone outside you, but from within. A voice that sounds eerily like your own, yet carries a strange desperation. It starts off quietly, maybe a whisper, but for some, it arrives as a scream. Either way, it shows up abruptly. Loud, anxious, persuasive. You find yourself suddenly inside a mental courtroom, with the voice acting as judge, jury, and executioner. What are you doing? This isn't real. You're losing it. This is too much. Stop now before you destroy everything. That voice, that isn't your higher self. It isn't your intuition. That is your ego in full-blown survival mode. And its job isn't to comfort you, it's to keep you safe, even if that means holding you back from the very awakening your soul is craving. To the ego, anything unfamiliar is a threat. Anything expansive is terrifying. It doesn't differentiate between death and transformation, because to the ego, they feel the same. What's often misunderstood is that the ego doesn't actually fear change. It fears irrelevance. It fears becoming obsolete in a world where your higher self leads the way. And that's why awakening, true awakening, feels like dying. Because it is. It's the death of illusions, of outdated beliefs, of protective identities that were once necessary, but are now outgrown. And this is where July 2nd becomes significant. The first quarter moon doesn't just cast a soft light, it splits the sky. Half light, half dark, a mirror of duality. That exact balance of shadow and illumination activates something potent within you, and equally within your ego. The energy becomes a battleground between expansion and regression. The ego, sensing its grip slipping, makes one final desperate attempt to bring you back into the comfort of the familiar. This is the moment most people turn back. Not because they lack courage, not because they don't want to grow, but because they mistake the ego's frantic alarms for inner truth. They confuse fear with guidance. The ego is clever like that. It doesn't try to stop you by attacking you directly. Instead, it uses your own logic, your own voice, your own pain, to convince you that staying small is safer. But here's the truth. You don't need to fight the ego. You don't need to destroy it. You simply need to stop giving it the driver's seat. The ego was never meant to lead. It was meant to serve. And when you begin observing it, witnessing it as a program, a system doing its job rather than a keeper of your soul's identity, it starts to lose power. It quiets. It dissolves, like fog melting under morning sun. And just when that happens, just when you create space between you and the noise, you meet something far older, far more ancient than the ego. You meet your shadow. And here's the paradox. The most terrifying part of awakening isn't the new. It's the old. It's what you've buried, what you've forgotten, what you've silenced to survive. The moment your ego steps back, the emotional terrain cracks open. What used to be a mental process suddenly becomes raw, instinctual, deeply emotional. You start remembering things you never consciously chose to forget. People from the past reappear, in dreams, in thoughts, sometimes in physical form. Triggers hit with brutal precision. Wounds you thought had healed suddenly burn like open flames. This isn't regression. This is emergence. This is your shadow making itself known. But your shadow doesn't haunt you because it wants to break you. It haunts you because it wants to be seen. It wants to come home. Every piece of you that you rejected, every shameful memory, every unprocessed emotion, every unworthy thought, returns not to punish you, but to be reclaimed. The anger, the jealousy, the rage, the grief, they all want to be understood, not buried. The trap is in thinking these parts mean you're broken, that you're failing your spiritual path. And so many people run into love and light cliches, into false calm, into bypassing. But those who truly awaken don't run. They sit. They listen. They ask the shadow, "What are you here to show me?" Because every shadow is a messenger. Every inner demon is a distorted reflection of a gift you disowned to survive. And as July 2nd's moonlight strikes, it won't just illuminate your growth. It will shine on your ghosts. The echoes of everything you've left unresolved. And what happens next depends not on the stars, not on fate, but on one sacred question. Will you listen or will you run? Because if you run, you won't just forget who you are becoming. You'll forget why you ever began this journey in the first place. And that, perhaps, is the most disorienting part of the awakening path. It's not the chaos. It's not the loss. It's not even the emotion. It's when the very reason that once burned like fire within you simply vanishes. When what once inspired you feels flat. When your former dreams no longer ignite a spark. That's not failure. That's the space between old purpose and new alignment. A sacred void. And if you can stay with it, if you can breathe through the emptiness without rushing to fill it, what emerges on the other side won't just be purpose. There are moments on your spiritual path when everything begins to feel distant, almost hollow. You look around and find yourself detached from the very things that once gave you purpose, joy, and direction. You're not sure if you're growing or falling apart. And the most confusing part? It's not obvious whether you're evolving into a higher version of yourself or quietly unraveling. It's a strange, in-between state that makes even your most cherished truths feel unrecognizable. But this experience isn't proof that you're broken or lost. In fact, it's something far more profound. This is a spiritual reset, a powerful, invisible recalibration of your entire being. What you're moving through is rarely spoken about, not in mainstream spiritual circles, and certainly not in everyday conversation. As your consciousness begins to rise, as you expand into higher awareness and vibrational states, your old motivations, desires, and identities begin to dissolve. They simply can't hold your new energy anymore. The structures that once gave shape to your life, your goals, your roles, even your self-concept, start to loosen their grip. But before anything new can fully anchor in, before the next version of you can truly embody itself, there is a space in between. A liminal phase, an energetic void. It feels like being caught mid-air between who you were and who you are becoming. Some call it a memory wipe. Others describe it as floating in unreality. Either way, it's as if your mind starts slipping and nothing feels solid. You begin questioning everything. Was all of this just a dream? Did I make it all up? Was this path a temporary delusion? Is any of this even real? And during this hazy uncertainty, it can feel as if the light has gone out. as if you've been spiritually unplugged from everything you once knew. This is what can only be called spiritual amnesia. And as terrifying as it may feel, it is not a regression. It's not failure. It's not you falling off your path. In truth, this moment of forgetting is the threshold before a massive internal upgrade. The mind grows quiet, even confused, because the soul is being invited to come forward. And in order for that to happen, everything you once relied on for validation or security must be released, even if only temporarily. But here's where many people get trapped. They assume they're doing something wrong. The silence feels unbearable, the confusion overwhelming, so they panic. They grasp for clarity, for answers, for the old ways of being. They force themselves to figure it out before the time is right. That frantic energy, that attempt to control the process, is what causes misalignment. It's like pulling at the cocoon before the butterfly has formed. Spiritual amnesia isn't a detour from the path. It is the path. It is the sacred tunnel between dimensions, a kind of energetic corridor between who you were and who you are meant to be. If you find yourself in it, the key is not to search frantically for the light, but to feel your way back to what first awakened you. Remember how it felt before the forgetting, the goosebumps, the dreams that felt like messages, the unexplainable pull toward something greater. That quiet knowing that something sacred was unfolding within you. Those moments weren't imaginary. They were more real than the doubt you're feeling now. They were echoes of your soul calling you home. And when you stop resisting the void, when you stop fighting to fix the uncertainty, a subtle warmth begins to return. It's not a thought or a concept. It's a frequency, a felt sense, a quiet certainty that begins to hum within your heart. The memory returns, but not in the way you expect. It doesn't rush in with answers. Instead, it emerges as an embodied wisdom, deeper, quieter, and more unwavering than before. And just when you begin to feel stable again, just when your energy starts to crystallize into coherence and power, something unexpected happens. You draw attention. This is the moment many overlook. When your light returns, when your energy begins to radiate with truth, something comes. Something always comes. Most assume that clarity is the finish line, that once you get it, the tests are over. But in reality, that's when the real initiation begins. Because now, you're radiating a frequency you've never held before. You've become luminous, aligned, coherent. Your field is broadcasting a new, higher signal, and spiritual light is not metaphorical. It is literal. It emits a vibration that reverberates through the unseen realms. And while light attracts blessings, it also attracts interference. When you're in low-frequency survival mode, you're practically invisible to certain energies. But the moment your essence stabilizes, you become a beacon. And not everything that responds has your highest good in mind. Sometimes the interference is subtle, a draining phone call, an interaction that leaves you foggy, a random encounter that feels heavy or off. Other times it's more intense, a recurring dream that feels invasive, an unexplainable fatigue after entering a particular space, or the sudden appearance of someone from your past who pulls on your energy in manipulative ways. It may not always come in the form of enemies. In fact, that's the trick. Some of the most disruptive energetic intrusions come wrapped in flattery, admiration, even spiritual camaraderie. That's why this isn't about rejecting people. It's about discerning energy. It's about becoming wise to patterns. The first sign that something is draining your field, you begin doubting yourself again. But it doesn't feel like your own doubt. It comes from outside, a static in your system, a tug at your clarity. You feel it in your chest, like a disruption in your signal. When that happens, the most powerful thing you can do isn't to attack or defend, but to center. Pull your energy back. Seal your field. Reclaim your space, not with force, but with presence. Because sovereignty is not about separation. It's about awareness. It's about knowing where you end and something else begins. Energetic sovereignty means noticing when something is feeding on your attention, your peace, your presence, and choosing not to participate, not out of fear, but out of deep respect for your light. And here's the secret no one says out loud. Some of the greatest energy drains don't come disguised as danger. They come disguised as desire, as admiration, as harmless connection. That's why discernment matters more than judgment. The stronger your light becomes, the more sacred your field must be kept. Not to shut people out, but to keep your soul intact. And when you begin to live this way, present, attuned, sovereign, something remarkable begins to happen. The world around you starts to rearrange. Opportunities appear that match your vibration. Connections deepen. New timelines activate. It's as though life has been waiting for you to awaken into your full power. And then, when the wave comes, when the shift hits, it doesn't ask if you're ready. It rises. Suddenly, emotions you've buried flood to the surface. There is no trigger, no warning. It moves like a storm through your heart and soul, not to punish, but to purge. Not to break you, but to baptize you. Sometimes there is no logical explanation for what you're going through. One moment you're casually sipping coffee, lost in thought or checking your phone, and the next, your breath is catching in your chest. Your eyes are brimming with tears, and old memories, some you haven't touched in years, suddenly roar through you like a tidal wave crashing against the walls of your heart. It doesn't make sense. It feels chaotic, raw, and deeply personal. But this isn't a mental breakdown. What you're experiencing is the release of long-held emotional residue, grief, pain, anger, and heartbreak that your system simply couldn't process fully the first time it happened. The emotional body, unlike the mind, doesn't rationalize, organize, or forget. It stores everything, especially the feelings that were too loud, too inconvenient, or too overwhelming to deal with in the moment. Moments of heartbreak, betrayal, injustice, loss, they don't vanish. They wait, tucked quietly into the corners of your nervous system, the hidden folds of your heart, until something powerful enough comes along to unlock them. And when a celestial event like the July 2nd lunar surge arrives, that lock doesn't just loosen, it shatters. Suddenly, the dam bursts, and when it does, the force can be seismic. What makes this so unsettling is the way it shows up. Random, uninvited, and often misunderstood. One moment you're fine, the next you're sobbing behind the wheel of your car, overwhelmed with grief that seems to come out of nowhere. You might find yourself furious with someone who's no longer even alive, or you're overtaken by a wave of joy so vast it feels otherworldly, only for it to disappear a few minutes later. These emotions may seem irrational, disconnected, or excessive, but they are none of those things. They are emotional messages that were delayed, encrypted in your soul, waiting for the right energetic frequency to unlock them. And now, that cosmic key has turned. This is the threshold most people struggle with, not because they're weak, but because they've been taught to fear their feelings. We're conditioned to analyze instead of alchemize, to try and understand every sensation rather than simply surrendering to the experience. But this is one of the deepest spiritual truths. Not everything is meant to be solved. Some emotions are meant to be felt, fully and freely, without judgment or resistance. You were never meant to feel okay all the time. That's not evolution. That's emotional suppression. You came here to feel everything. The rage, the heartbreak, the grief, the shame, the joy, the confusion, the wonder. You were designed to be a vessel, not a vault. Feeling doesn't mean you're broken or weak. It means the emotion is moving, releasing, healing. It means it's finally leaving. Those who try to contain or control these waves of energy often find themselves looping, repeating emotional patterns and spiritual lessons, not because they haven't tried hard enough, but because they never let the energy pass all the way through. Spiritual relapse doesn't come from lack of effort. It comes from resistance. True emotional mastery isn't about control. It's about capacity. It's not your job to fix the feeling. It's your job to expand wide enough to hold it, to let it rise and fall without becoming it. The moment you allow yourself to be the space, rather than the storm, you shift. You float above the chaos. You become the sky that holds the thunder, not the thunder itself. And in doing so, you evolve. You stop fearing your emotional depth. You stop criticizing yourself for being too much. Instead, you begin to understand your emotions as sacred data, cosmic weather reports from the soul. Eventually, the storm quiets, the floodwaters recede, and what you're left with is not just emotional calm, but a whole new form of perception, a clarity so sharp, so piercing, it almost hurts. Because once the illusion dies, once the noise clears, the world doesn't look enchanted anymore. It looks flat, dull, and strange. Colors seem muted. Sounds feel distant. Conversations lose their spark. Art, food, music, things that once made you feel alive, might feel empty. This isn't depression. This is the aftermath of awakening. No one warns you about this stage, the part after the purging, the crying, the breakthroughs. The part where you wake up and feel like you're living in a cardboard replica of a world that once felt vibrant. Many mistake this phase for failure. They think something's gone wrong, that they've ruined themselves. But the truth is, you're not broken. You're sober. All the enchantments, projections, false identities, and conditioned desires have burned away. You've shed them. And now you're standing in the raw, unfiltered light of reality, unmasked, untouched, and unsure what to do next. But this isn't the end. This is the beginning of your sacred task, re-enchantment. And re-enchantment isn't automatic. It's an act of conscious will, a daily devotion, a holy re-choosing. You have to decide to bring meaning back into your life, not through distraction or fantasy, but through embodied presence. You must retrain your eyes to see the divine in the ordinary, the shimmer of sunlight through leaves, the delicate pause before a stranger smiles, the rustle of the wind brushing against your skin. These moments are not trivial. They are the spiritual architecture of a newly awakened life, but you cannot perceive them with the same eyes you once used. This stage demands ritual, not dogma, but play, not performance, but intimacy. Light a candle and really mean it. Walk barefoot at dusk and feel the earth speak to you. Speak to the moon as if it's listening, because it is. These are not theatrics. They are codes. They are how you begin weaving magic back into the fabric of your world. This is the re-enchantment protocol. It is where the mystic becomes the artist, where imagination ceases to be an escape and becomes a technology for shaping reality. The spiritual is no longer something distant you reach for. it's something you generate, moment by moment, gesture by gesture, presence by presence. And then something miraculous happens. You're no longer chasing awakening like a goal. You're embodying it, living it, breathing it into existence. You realize this is what you came for. But even this isn't the final step. Because just when you shine brightest, just when your energy becomes the clearest signal it's ever been, the world will test you again. There are certain tests in life that don't announce themselves. They don't come wrapped in warnings or marked with clear signs. They arrive quietly, disguised as ordinary moments or complete chaos. And before you even realize it, you're already in it. That's the thing about the real trials. They don't look like tests until they've already begun. Survival, in the truest sense, isn't about just getting by. It isn't merely about staying alive or keeping your head above water. Real survival transforms you. It reshapes the very fabric of who you are. It burns away what isn't real. And if you're still here, if you've weathered the confusion, the isolation, the emotional floods, the dismantling of your ego, then what happens next is irreversible. Because this is the part no one ever talks about. Not because it's a secret, but because most people never make it this far. They retreat. They numb out. They silence the call within them by drowning in distractions, pretending to evolve while looping in spiritual bypassing. Because truthfully, facing all of it is brutal. But if you don't run, if you stay, if you let yourself be unmade without escaping through addiction, denial, or fantasy, something extraordinary begins to happen. Your nervous system, the subtle, intelligent wiring of your entire body, starts to recalibrate. It evolves. You begin to hold energies, emotions, frequencies that once would have knocked you off your center. You stop falling apart every time the unknown enters your field. You stop scrambling to manage discomfort or chase after quick fixes. You don't collapse at every energetic tremor. Instead, you start sensing before the shift even happens. You track energy with the precision of instinct. You move in rhythm with the invisible tides. You don't need protection spells or affirmations to feel safe, because your entire presence becomes protective. Your very being radiates clarity. Your body becomes the sanctuary. And your signal, the energy you emit just by existing, becomes a prayer. Constant, unshakable. At this point, spirituality is no longer a performance. It's not about how many books you've read or how high your vibe seems online. It's not about appearing enlightened or curating a perfect aesthetic version of peace. You are what you once searched for. You don't try to connect to source anymore. You are source, embodied. The connection is constant, seamless, and effortlessly present. You don't need a ritual to validate your connection. You don't need to prove your worthiness to the divine. You simply exist in alignment. Intuition becomes your native language. It's not a whisper you question anymore. It's a thunderous knowing, piercing through with the accuracy of lightning and the calm power of still water. Protection no longer feels like something you invoke. It's something you radiate. It moves with you. It's encoded in the frequency you carry. Desire shifts too. It's no longer rooted in lack or the cravings of the ego. It becomes an organic pull from your highest path, a gravitational alignment with your soul's most expansive reality. Survival, you begin to realize, was never about escape. It was always about embodiment. Becoming fully here, fully you, rooted in presence, anchored in self. This is the turning point. This is where you stop chasing signs from the universe and start becoming one. You no longer look for proof of alignment. You are the proof. This is where people start to feel something the moment you walk into a room. Not because you're flashy, not because you're loud, but because you carry the signature of someone who was forged in fire and didn't break. You embody the energy of someone who has seen the edge of themselves, who met every shadow and still chose to stay. And that kind of presence, it's unmistakable. It's felt before a word is ever spoken. And July 2nd, it's not just another date on the calendar, it's a gate, a marker in time for those who are ready, for those who feel the shift stirring in their bones. If you're still watching, then maybe, just maybe, you're one of them. Thank you for your time, your energy, and your presence here. If this message resonated with you, consider subscribing to stay connected. Share your thoughts, your process, or your story in the comments, because your voice matters, and you never know who it might reach. Until next time, be well, stay grounded, and remember, the fire wasn't here to destroy you. It was here to show you who you really are.